Well, good afternoon and welcome to our daily briefing for the 1st of May, if you can believe it, of 2020. We're tickled today to have some folks from slightly outside of my jurisdiction, but friends nonetheless of Missoula and Missoula County for sure. Claire Muller, pardon me, who is the executive director of the Seeley Lake Community Foundation. They do fantastic work in that community. And Tom Browder, who has taken on the highly compensated role as chair of the Seeley Lake Community Council. That compensation is zero, by the way. So we're really grateful for these volunteer leaders and tickled to have you with us today. And leading our Q&A today is Commissioner Juanita Vero. Good morning, afternoon, Commissioner.
Thanks so much, everyone, and happy Friday and happy May 1st. Well, Claire and Tom, tell us about your roles in Seeley Lake.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us here today. I am the executive director of a nonprofit in Seeley Lake, which is called the Seeley Lake Community Foundation. And during all of this COVID-19 crisis, we have been trying to help this community. I have created a webpage of Seeley Swan specific resources and opportunities that's available for residents and businesses here. I've also obviously been featuring the county website on that because you guys have some incredible resources. I've also been representing Seeley Lake on the Missoula County Office of Emergency Management COAD calls, Community Organizations Active in Disaster. And that's a group of over 20 organizations around the county that come together in a time of crisis to work together and collaborate and break into task forces and just try to help fill in the gaps and communicate to make sure we all know who's working on what different projects. I've also just been trying to be pretty proactive in calling around to different groups in Seeley Lake to check on people. This is a weird time right now where you can't go visit people. So I've been trying to call some of our local businesses and make sure they're just see what they're doing with the PPP. I've been checking in with our social service nonprofits here in the Valley. I've been trying to collaborate with a really neat group that has come up, the Seeley Swan Helps group, which is half a dozen local pastors and ministers who have come together to try to provide volunteers wherever is needed and just trying to help get a pulse on what Seeley Lake's needs are and help direct people to resources.
Tom?
Okay, so I guess I'd fall in the category of active volunteer. I'm president of the Double Arrow Ranch Landowners Association, which is probably one of the largest HOAs in the county. We have about 630 homeowners. We're probably a mix of about 50-50 year-round residents and our seasonal residents. One thing we've done since the start of the shelter in place is we've moved our committee meetings and our monthly board meetings to a virtual format like this, which has been quite successful. In fact, we think it's probably a model we'll continue even after we get to the other side. I am on the community foundation or the community council. I'm secretary, not chair, but I have been involved in getting our meetings live streamed on Facebook for about the past year. So in some ways it was good training for what we're having to do these days. And then kind of the third volunteer hat I wear is I'm on the board of the Historical Society. And of course we have a wonderful museum just south of town and we're always welcoming folks from the county to come visit it. But this year we're taking on the Visitors Center role as well. And obviously right now it's a bit in flux as to what museums will do under phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3, and what visitor centers will do. And what I like about Missoula County, I think there's been real good collaboration On the museum side, we can go to the Historical Museum at Fort Missoula folks. The Visitor Center side, that's kind of coming out of the State Tourism Department. But we feel pretty comfortable that come our Memorial Day weekend, which is really when things start here, that we'll be able to work with the tourists that come in, have our museum open with the appropriate safeguards, following the county rules. And just been nice to have all the help.
That's terrific. I was, so my 90-year-old mother lives independently in a facility downtown, and those four walls get a little close. So a couple of weeks ago, we hopped in my car and social distanced and all of that in the car, and drove to Seeley for a little change of scenery. And there was not a soul to be seen in Seeley Lake, Montana. Highly unusual, of course. So on the one hand, there's tremendous comfort, and folks are taking this seriously. On the other hand, we want you all to get back open, but clearly there are some challenges to that. So what's happening in Seeley today?
I guess the best way to look at Seeley, from those of us that are here year-round, is we're kind of like a three-legged stool. We've got the timber business, we've got tourism, and really the retirees are becoming a big part of our economy. Well, the good thing about that, we really feel fortunate, is the mill is open. Folks can be in the woods, their timber sales, their thinning, their remedial work. So that's good. And retirees are a bit of a stabilizing influence anyway, because they're probably less impacted economically. So the third thing is tourism. And I think now, as we're into May, knowing that, mid-May to mid-September is our tourist season, just want to make sure we take advantage. We do know, especially from our retiree population, that there's some concerns. And I think we see that throughout the county, well, throughout the country, really. We do have folks that are, let's say, not invincible, but maybe feel that way. So we want to make sure, as the population, the seasonal population picks up, we have everybody marching to the beat of the county drum, which has been really good so far. But that's probably the one thing those of us in tourist-facing activities like the Visitor Center a little concerned about. We're confident we'll get there, but we want to do it right.
I think Tom summed up the economy in Seeley Lake pretty well. Mayor, I think right now it's pretty quiet, like you said, when you came up here and visited. And that's a really interesting component about COVID-19 and this community, I think, is that April is traditionally one of the quietest times of the year. It's our shoulder season, and the lake just broke free of ice a week or two ago. And so people here are used to this being really slow and quiet. So I think that there is a lot of stress and worry, but I also think that it's kind of overlaid over this odd sense of, well, we're usually this way at this time of year. So there's a lot of tension, and there's a lot of stress about the future. But the reality is, it's how do we plan ahead when we're traditionally also seeing a quiet time of year right now. I do think that how things are in Seeley Lake right now, I've heard people talking a lot about the Rice Ridge fire from 2 years ago as kind of a comparison. And I think there are some really interesting parallels, because with that crisis, we had the worst smoke in the country. The town almost burned up. It was this really stressful disaster. And similar to now, there's just a lot of worries. There's huge potential for calamity. But then when we came out of it on the other side, there were no structures that were burned. And so it was kind of this weird situation where we had a lot of stress and worry, and then there wasn't the town didn't burn over. And so I think but from the Rice Ridge fire, the the tourism impact and the impact to small businesses was felt for a really long time. And I think that's a parallel with this situation too, that like I said, it's kind of quiet here right now, but there's a lot of worry that I've heard of as this stretches on, how will this impact a lot of the seasonal businesses and a lot of the people who make a lot of their money during the summer months, and so the long-term economic impacts of this COVID-19 crisis.
And yes, I'm right there with you all. I'm curious about how my family's guest ranch business is going to do this summer. But both of you have been out in your communities kind of taking that pulse that you were talking about. What are the gaps that you're seeing?
There's a gap that, I mean, I think it's a gap. It's hard to get really kind of hard data, but we have an economy up here that has a lot of individual contractors. It's our version of the gig economy. And these people, I think, are in kind of a fragile position. And while there has been a lot of programs, payroll protection, the SBA programs, I've worked with folks, who don't really even navigate websites well to get that done. And I think we probably had some drop off. People say, it's not for me. And so what I'd like to ask of, the county and the city, because I think this is probably more widespread than we might think. If you have the person, lives paycheck to paycheck, they don't have financial statements. You can't send them to UM and talk to someone because their financial statement, it's their checkbook. But if they can't make a payment on their F-350 truck that they go out on their logging jobs, that can make the difference between staying in business and not. And right now, I think we'd like to have a place where those people can go, non-judgmental, just to say, look, can you help me? So that's something I've seen. Again, I can't say that's a third of the businesses. It's not the bigger ones, but it's the, primary labor only people that do, thinning and, subcontracting for builders. So I'd like to know what you'd recommend we do to help those folks.
Well, excuse me, I think that's great input, Tom. And one of the things that I think Commissioner Vero and I can do really immediately after we're done with this call is reach out to Grant Keir at the Missoula Economic Partnership. That organization serves Missoula County, and they've tipped up a lot of navigation for small business, and I'm sure that they'd step up to find a way to assist these actual mom and pop or pop operators to navigate this stuff. I hear over and over again from folks that they say I did something today I never thought I would do, and whether it's apply for unemployment or ask a bank to forgive a loan, there shouldn't be any shame or stigma associated with this. There are so many people in the same boat, and so I think we can get MEP to lend a hand there for sure.
And another resource is also the Chamber of Commerce and United Way too, depending on what level of help folks need. But Claire, you were sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you. I think Tom really brings up a really good point, and that's I think your question, Juanita, of where are the gaps is really kind of where we're at right now, right? Because there's so much money coming down the pike, and there's which is great and amazing, and we're all kind of caught off guard. So I think as we move forward with this, as now that we're getting our feet underneath us, there's going to be more and more resources available for folks. But similar to what Tom was saying, the gap that I've seen is the people who are in between. I think, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of seasonal businesses here, and there's a lot of people and business owners that I've talked to who don't meet one thing or the other. I've talked to people who own LLCs, and a couple weeks ago they were saying the PPP doesn't apply to me. I don't know where to go for help, you know, and there's a couple restaurants in town who say, well, we don't know how to, you know, if the PPP isn't a good fit and all of these, and trying to keep up with the social distancing isn't a good fit. I think just helping one-on-one support and getting people tied into what will exactly impact them will help. I know that BEAR program that was set up, that is such a great idea to try to help people who are in need. Last I heard, I think there was 27 businesses in Missoula County. That was a week and a half ago or so. I heard that 27 businesses that got assistance through the BEAR program so far with with University of Montana for small business economic assistance. But like Tom says, here in Seeley, and thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up, I think the stigma is something to acknowledge, because I think trust plays a really big role in filling the gaps that especially in a small community. It's being able to talk to somebody who's knowledgeable, but also that you can trust is a really big component to make sure people are getting the help they need here.
Good. Well, we'll lean into that.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. And
You have additional questions for us?
I have one more, and we sort of touched on it, and that's, you know, I think Claire and I have made clear tourism is just really our lifeblood the next 4 months, and we really want to see lots of Missoula County license plates up here, because we'll have our visitor center open. But with campgrounds opening in a week or two, and of course we know there's a lot of coordination between the Lolo Forest and the counties, so we all have the same set of rules. But when people start showing up because they see the map of Montana on these graphic things with a tiny dot, and they say, you know, that's where we're heading, and they come into our recreational areas, they need to quarantine for 14 days. And some of us have been struggling a little with what that looks like, how it's enforced, and can we do something countywide to kind of help people that come in an RV and quarantine? Has that come up? It's a question that it's not really one jurisdiction or another. It's more a behavioral thing. But, you know, we want to welcome these visitors, but we want to do it in a safe way.
do you want to talk about the working group or the task force, Mayor?
Yeah, sure. That's exactly where I was going to go. So, we have an active task force that's meeting multiple times a week to talk about reopening and sort of all of its many variables. And I think this is one that may not necessarily be on the radar, but certainly should be. You know, Missoula relies heavily on tourism as well. And Tom, as you suggest, I think we're going to see a lot of COVID refugees, right? Folks who are coming to a place that looks safe, and we want to absolutely accommodate them while also being safe and protecting folks who call this place home year round. So that task force is working on that. And again, I think this is an opportunity for the commissioner and I to lean into those folks and suggest that we could work together on some protocols and some messaging around that, because I think it will be very important for your community and many communities in Missoula County. And
if folks need to have an immediate question answered, they can call environmental health at 258-4755. And they've really ramped up the number of environmental health specialists that are available to help people either how to safely open your business so that you can take care of your employees and your customers, and then walk through any questions you might have. So again, 258-4755. Don't be scared of them. They're there to help.
Anything else we can do for you today?
I'd like to mention something that I am excited about, a couple things that I think are some, in the midst of all this stress and uncertainty, are just some silver linings and some neat things I've been hearing about.
We're all about silver linings.
First of all, thank you, both of you, Mayor and Commissioner, for your hard work. You know, I think the county has been doing a phenomenal job of trying to get the word out and trying to just work to help people. I've been on these county COAD calls, like I mentioned, with the Office of Emergency Management, and it's been really inspiring to see people step up and just come together and work so hard to try and help everybody. So thank you so much for your hard work and for all of your staff's hard work. Really appreciate that. One thing that I am also really excited about and interested in is this $1.25 billion that's come into Montana. I know the governor has a task force that they're working really hard right now on trying to figure out how to deploy that money. And so I've been trying to figure out what my role is with the community foundation here in this tiny town in Montana, and like, how do you make a difference? And this is a crisis with so many different implications for so many different parts of life. And so I've just been kind of like trying to see where I can help. And I've been trying to keep an ear out for all the different pots of money that are flowing around, because I view my role here as trying to help position Seeley Lake as I can to try to help the people here take advantage of all the different forms of assistance that are starting to just fly all over the place. So I am super excited about that $1.25 billion that the governor, and my understanding it's going to be, a lot of it is economic recovery focused. And my understanding is also that that task force is really looking at the tourism and hospitality industry and trying to do some kind of jumpstart with that industry. So I think I have a lot of hope that that is going to be something like a lot of money that could help businesses that are struggling here. Tom and I were talking beforehand, and it's kind of the you know, how to make sure that's getting deployed fast enough that people need it now. Thank you guys also for your hard work for all the, you know, the United Way Assistance Fund for service workers laid off, things like that. And so I'm really excited about all the partnership and the collaboration I've seen here in Seeley Lake. People have just been reaching out to neighbors. There's been so many acts of kindness. There's just a lot of people in this community that have huge hearts and are really good people. And there's a lot of people in all of Missoula County. I think it's just really apparent that there's a lot of really amazing people who care about community and who really care about each other. And it's exhausting, but I think it's really beautiful to see new connections being made.
That's great. So I'm gonna give a quick plug for your Missoula County Board of Commissioners. These three people are incredibly hardworking, intelligent, creative, thoughtful. It's really been a pleasure to work with the commissioners through this. They are dedicated to serving all of you. And I happen to be a resident of Missoula County, so I'm incredibly grateful to them as well for representing the interests of this county and our communities so well and so generously. I can tell you quickly, the Governor's Task Force will be delivering its recommendations to the governor today with regard to that COVID relief package, the CARES Act, and tourism and jump-starting tourism is clearly a component of that, as well as just making sure that folks have roofs over their heads and full bellies and access to healthcare. So that group, I think, has been really thoughtful, and I hope that the governor takes those recommendations and moves quickly to get that money deployed based on those recommendations and his best instincts. I've got high hopes. I suffer from optimism. It's a plague that hasn't left me yet. There's no vaccine. Commissioner, what else would you like to add for the good of the order today?
We want to keep it that way. We want the optimism plague. So looking forward to what comes out of the governor's office and Thank you, Mayor, for your kind words, and right back at you. It is feels really special to be part of a community that works so well together at these lower local levels, where it's just community groups or neighborhood groups working together, and then our city and our county. And it's we're really, really lucky to have this. So thank you all for your great work, and I hope everyone gets an opportunity to have a weekend.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you. Thanks, Juanita. And we'll follow up, Claire and Tom, with MEP, and thank you for all you do. Our places operate the way they do because of good-hearted humans like you who care about our friends and neighbors. So thank you for all you do.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye.